It was an ordinary Tuesday morning, the kind where nothing seemed out of place. People were busy with their usual routines, kids playing in parks, adults rushing to work, and coffee shops buzzing with early customers. The sun shone brightly, casting golden rays over cities and countryside alike. Everything felt normal, almost boring. But then, something extraordinary happened. Something that would change life on Earth forever. At first, it started as a faint shimmer in the sky. It looked like heat waves rising from hot asphalt during summer afternoons. Some people noticed it but didn't think much of it. Maybe it was just a weird weather pattern or some glitch in satellite imaging, they thought. Others shrugged it off entirely, too preoccupied with their daily lives to pay attention. However, within minutes, the shimmer grew brighter and more intense. It wasn't just localized anymore. It stretched across entire continents, visible, even from space. Then came the sound. A deep, rumbling roar echoed through the atmosphere, shaking buildings and rattling windows. Cars screeched to a halt as drivers struggled to figure out what was happening. Birds flew erratically, abandoning their nests in panic. Dogs howled, sensing danger long before humans could comprehend it. And then, without warning, the sky split open. Imagine standing outside on a clear day when suddenly the blue expanse above you cracks like glass under pressure. That's exactly what happened. A massive fissure appeared high above the clouds, glowing with an eerie light that pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. From this crack emerged shapes so large they blocked out the sunlight and cast long shadows over the land below. These weren't natural formations or random objects floating aimlessly in space. They were ships, massive, jagged structures that looked less like sleek spaceships from science fiction movies and more like floating fortresses built for war. Each one was colossal, dwarfing skyscrapers and entire cityscapes beneath them. If you stood at the base of one of these ships, you'd feel tiny, insignificant like an ant gazing up at a mountain. Panic erupted almost instantly. People screamed and ran in every direction, unsure of what to do or where to go. Social media platforms exploded with videos and photos of the phenomenon, each caption filled with questions no one had answers to. Was this an alien invasion? A government experiment gone wrong? Or maybe some kind of divine punishment? Nobody knew, and that uncertainty only fueled the fear spreading faster than wildfire. Governments scrambled to respond. Emergency broadcasts blared over radios and televisions, urging citizens to stay calm and seek shelter. Military forces mobilized, though no one really knew how to fight against something so overwhelmingly powerful. Scientists gathered in secret, bunkers, analyzing data and trying to make sense of the impossible sight unfolding before their eyes. Yet despite all the chaos, there was one thing everyone agreed on. Whatever these ships were, they weren't human-made. Meanwhile, aboard the largest of these star destroyers, alien commanders watched Earth's reaction with growing unease. These beings, who had traveled countless light years to reach this planet, expected to find a primitive civilization easily conquered. After all, Earth's history showed endless wars, environmental destruction, and technological limitations compared to other advanced species in the galaxy. Conquering such a world should have been simple, a routine mission hardly worth mentioning in their logs. But now doubt crept into their minds. Why hadn't humanity crumbled under the sheer magnitude of their arrival? Why did the humans seem so organized? Sure, there was panic, but it wasn't the blind terror they had anticipated. Instead, there was resistance, not physical yet, but psychological. Humanity clung to hope, refusing to accept defeat even when faced with overwhelming odds. This resilience puzzled the aliens, making them question whether they had underestimated their target. As hours passed, the situation worsened for the invaders. Their scans revealed something astonishing. Earth wasn't defenseless. Beneath its surface lay hidden weapon systems far beyond anything the aliens had encountered before. Energy shields capable of surviving supernova explosions hummed silently underground, ready to activate at a moment's notice. Plasma cannons designed to vaporize asteroids sat idle, waiting for commands. Drones equipped with artificial intelligence moved faster than light itself, prepared to intercept any threat. The aliens realized they had made a grave mistake. They had come expecting to dominate a weak, divided species. Instead, they found themselves facing a united front armed with technology, far superior to their own. Fear began to take root among the alien ranks. For the first time in their existence, they wondered if they were the ones being hunted, not the hunters. Back on Earth, ordinary people continued to grapple with the reality of what was happening. In small towns and big cities alike, families huddled together, praying for survival. Parents comforted children who cried, asking why the sky had broken apart. Teenagers posted frantic messages online, desperate for information. Elders recalled stories of ancient prophecies predicting the end of days. Everyone wanted answers, but none were forthcoming. Yet amidst the confusion and dread, a spark of curiosity ignited. Who or what had created those ships hanging ominously overhead? What did they want? And most importantly, how could humanity possibly stand a chance against such overwhelming power? These questions lingered in the air, unanswered but impossible to ignore. Little did anyone know, the answers lay buried deep within Earth's past. Secrets hidden beneath layers of ice and forgotten by time held the key to understanding not only the visitors from the stars but also humanity's true potential. As the world teetered on the brink of chaos, a quiet revelation loomed on the horizon, a revelation that would rewrite history and redefine what it meant to be human. And so, the stage was set. The sky had parted, revealing mysteries both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Humanity stood at a crossroads, unsure of what lay ahead. But one thing was certain. The events unfolding above their heads would leave an indelible mark on the future of their species, and perhaps the entire universe. As the initial shock of the alien arrival began to settle, a new wave of questions swept across Earth. How could humanity possibly defend itself against such overwhelming power? The invaders' ships were colossal, their technology advanced beyond anything humans had ever seen. Yet despite the fear gripping the planet, there was an undercurrent of hope, a quiet confidence that refused to be extinguished. This hope wasn't born out of blind optimism. It came from whispers of secrets buried deep beneath the surface of the Earth. Secrets that governments had kept hidden for decades. It all started decades earlier, long before anyone imagined aliens would visit Earth. In the icy wilderness of Antarctica, scientists stumbled upon something extraordinary while drilling through ancient ice sheets. Buried far below the frozen landscape, they discovered remnants of what appeared to be advanced machinery that predated human civilization by thousands, perhaps millions of years. At first, researchers thought it might be debris from a meteorite or fragments of some natural phenomenon. But as they dug deeper and analyzed the artifacts, they realized the truth. These objects weren't natural at all. They were pieces of technology left behind by an ancient, highly intelligent species. The discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Who were these beings? Why had they come to Earth? And why had they disappeared without a trace? These questions remained unanswered, but one thing became clear. The technology was unlike anything humanity possessed. It operated on principles so advanced that even the brightest minds struggled to comprehend them. However, with time, effort, and collaboration between nations, scientists managed to reverse engineer small fragments of the alien tech. What they created changed everything. Using the knowledge gained from the Antarctic artifacts, governments around the world quietly embarked on a massive project. They called it Operation Eclipse, named after the idea of eclipsing the dominance of any potential extraterrestrial threat. The goal was simple: build an arsenal powerful enough to protect Earth should the day ever come when humanity faced invaders from space. But this wasn't just about creating weapons. It was about ensuring survival. Every nation contributed resources, expertise, and manpower to the cause. Factories were repurposed, research labs expanded, and entire cities were built underground to house the growing infrastructure of Operation Eclipse. What emerged from this unprecedented global effort was nothing short of miraculous. Energy shields capable of deflecting asteroids and solar flares were constructed deep within Earth's crust. Plasma cannons, capable of obliterating targets larger than mountains, were installed in strategic locations worldwide. Autonomous drones, equipped with artificial intelligence, were designed to move faster than the speed of light, intercepting threats before they could reach the planet's surface. All of these systems were connected through a single network controlled by an AI, known only as Gaia. Gaia wasn't just a machine, it was a guardian, programmed to activate Earth's defenses automatically in case of an emergency. For years, Operation Eclipse remained classified, hidden from public view. Only a handful of people knew the full extent of its capabilities, and even fewer understood how much humanity owed to the ancient visitors whose technology had inspired it all. The rest of the world went about their lives unaware that beneath their feet lay a fortress capable of defending against forces far greater than themselves. When the alien fleet arrived, Gaia sprang into action without hesitation. As soon as the star destroyers entered Earth's orbit, automated protocols kicked in. Energy shields flickered to life over major cities, forming translucent domes that glowed faintly in the sunlight. Plasma cannons positioned in remote deserts and mountain ranges powered up, ready to fire at a moment's notice. Drones launched silently into the atmosphere, circling the invaders' ships like hawks watching prey. The aliens, who had come expecting to conquer a primitive planet, found themselves paralyzed by confusion. Their scans revealed defenses far more sophisticated than anything they had encountered in their travels across the galaxy. How could a species seemingly so young and undeveloped possess technology rivaling their own? It made no sense. Their unease grew when they attempted to disable Earth systems. They fired energy beams at the shields, hoping to breach them and strike terror into the hearts of humanity. But the shields absorbed every blow, shimmering briefly before stabilizing again. Plasma cannons retaliated, sending bursts of searing energy toward the alien fleet. Though the invaders' ships were heavily armored, the sheer precision and power of the attacks forced them to retreat temporarily. Meanwhile, back on Earth, ordinary people began piecing together clues about the source of their salvation. Reports surfaced online about strange facilities located in remote areas, places where construction had been ongoing for years without explanation. Some claimed these sites housed top-secret military projects, while others speculated they were part of a global conspiracy to prepare for alien contact. Whatever the truth, it was becoming increasingly clear that humanity wasn't as helpless as it seemed. One group of individuals, however, held a particularly personal stake in unraveling the mystery. 6-year-old triplets named Emma, Liam, and Sophia. Living in a modest apartment with their mother, Sarah, the children had spent their lives wondering about the identity of their father, a man whose face they had never seen and whose name they barely knew. Sarah had always told them he left before he knew about them, a vague explanation that left more questions than answers. But now, as the world grappled with the reality of alien invaders, old wounds began to resurface. While searching for emergency supplies during the chaos, Sarah accidentally knocked over a drawer, spilling its contents onto the floor. Among the scattered items was an old photograph she hadn't looked at in years. It showed her standing next to a man wearing a military uniform adorned with unfamiliar insignias. His face was stern yet kind, his eyes filled with determination. Curious, the triplets picked up the photo and asked their mother who the man was. For a moment, Sarah hesitated. She hadn't spoken about him in years, not because she wanted to forget, but because the memory was too painful. Finally, she sighed and sat down, pulling the children close. "That," she said softly, pointing to the man in the picture, "is your father." The room fell silent. Emma, Liam, and Sophia stared at the photograph, trying to reconcile the image with the stories, or lack thereof, they had heard about him. He didn't look like a hero or a villain. He just looked like a person. A person who, according to Sarah, had volunteered for a dangerous mission years ago. He was part of a special program, Sarah explained, her voice trembling slightly. A top-secret operation to protect Earth from threats we couldn't even imagine at the time. When he joined, he knew there was a good chance he wouldn't come back. His last message to me came shortly after I found out I was pregnant with you three. He said he loved us but couldn't risk returning, not if it meant putting us in danger. Tears welled up in the triplets' eyes as they listened. For the first time, they felt a mix of emotions they couldn't quite put into words. Pride, because their dad was a hero. Sadness, because they might never meet him. Confusion, because none of this made sense. Unbeknownst to them, their father's story was intertwined with the very events unfolding above their heads. The same technology inspired by ancient artifacts in Antarctica, the same technology now defending Earth, had been developed under his watchful eye. He had played a crucial role in Operation Eclipse, dedicating his life to ensuring humanity's survival. And though he had sacrificed his presence in their lives, his legacy lived on in the form of glowing shields and roaring plasma cannons. As the days passed, the triplets clung to the photograph, studying it intently as if trying to memorize every detail. They imagined what their father must have been like: brave, smart, maybe even a little funny. They wondered if he thought about them often, if he regretted leaving, or if he believed his sacrifice was worth it. In the midst of global turmoil, the triplets' personal journey added another layer of complexity to the unfolding drama. While the world debated whether humanity could withstand the alien threat, Emma, Liam, and Sophia grappled with a different question. Could they ever truly know the man who had given so much to protect them and everyone else on Earth? Little did they know, fate had plans neither they nor their mother could have anticipated. The same forces driving humanity's resistance against the invaders would soon bring their family closer together, in ways none of them could have imagined. The world outside continued to spiral into chaos, but for Emma, Liam, and Sophia, the turmoil felt oddly distant. Their small apartment became a cocoon of sorts, a fragile bubble where time seemed to slow down just enough for them to process what they had learned about their father. The photograph sat on the dining table, its edges worn from years of being tucked away in drawers. Every now and then, one of the triplets would glance at it, trying to piece together the man behind the uniform. Who was he? What kind of person had he been? And why had he chosen duty over family? Sarah, their mother, tried her best to answer these questions. She told them stories she hadn't shared in years, stories about how she and their father had met, fallen in love, and dreamed of building a life together. Back then, he had been full of hope and ambition, eager to make a difference in the world. But everything changed when he was recruited for Operation Eclipse. At first, Sarah didn't know much about the program. All she knew was that it was classified, dangerous, and required total commitment. When he accepted the mission, he promised her it wouldn't last forever. Just a few years, he had said, and then we'll have the rest of our lives. But those few years turned into a lifetime of silence. After his final message, there were no more letters, no phone calls, no updates. For a while, Sarah held on to hope, clinging to the belief that he would return someday. But as months stretched into years, reality set in. He wasn't coming back. Not because he didn't want to, but because he couldn't, or so she assumed. Now sitting across from her children, Sarah struggled to explain this painful truth without crushing the newfound pride blooming in their hearts. He did what he thought was right, she said softly, her voice tinged with both sadness and admiration. He gave up everything to protect people he didn't even know. That's the kind of man your father was. The triplets listened intently, absorbing every word. They wanted to believe their mom, that their dad was a hero, but it was hard not to feel hurt. Heroes were supposed to save the day and come home to their families, weren't they? Why couldn't their dad do both? As the days passed, the triplets began noticing subtle changes in their mom's behavior. She spent hours staring at the photograph, lost in thought. Sometimes she cried quietly in the kitchen after putting them to bed. Other times, she seemed distracted, answering their questions with vague responses or avoiding eye contact altogether. It was clear that talking about their dad brought back memories she had buried long ago, and reopening those wounds wasn't easy. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow through the apartment windows, Emma, decided to ask the question that had been nagging at her for days. "Do you think Dad is still alive?" she blurted out during dinner. Sarah froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. The room fell silent, the hum of the refrigerator suddenly loud. In the absence of conversation, finally she sighed and placed her utensils down. "I don't know," she admitted. "Part of me wants to believe he is. But if he is, why hasn't he reached out? Why hasn't anyone told us anything?" Liam frowned, his brow furrowing, in deep concentration. "Maybe he can't," he suggested. "Maybe he's stuck somewhere far away like space or something." Sophia nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, maybe he's fighting the aliens right now." Sarah chuckled despite herself, touched by their optimism. "That's sweet, kids, but I doubt it. If he were involved in all this, we'd probably know by now." Or so she thought. Meanwhile, aboard the largest star destroyer hovering ominously above Earth, tensions ran high among the alien commanders. The initial shock of humanity's defenses had given way to frustration and fear. Their scans revealed systems far more advanced than anything they had encountered before. Energy shields capable of withstanding supernova blasts, plasma cannons precise enough to obliterate targets miles wide, autonomous drones faster than light itself. How could such a primitive species possess technology rivaling their own? What unnerved them most, however, was the lack of aggression. Despite having the means to annihilate the invaders, humanity hadn't launched a single offensive strike. Instead, their actions were calculated, defensive, almost logical. It was as if they were waiting for something. But what? Back on Earth, answers began trickling in through encrypted messages and classified briefings. Military officials convened in underground bunkers, analyzing data streams and coordinating responses. Among them was a man whose face remained obscured by protective gear, a man known only by his call sign, Commander Atlas. Commander Atlas was a legend within Operation Eclipse. Few people knew his real name, let alone his personal history. To most, he was simply a symbol of leadership and resolve. Yet beneath the mask lay scars, not just physical ones but emotional ones carved by years of sacrifice and isolation. Years ago, he had left behind everything he loved to dedicate his life to protecting humanity. Now, as the fate of the planet rested in his hands, he couldn't help but wonder if the cost had been worth it. Unbeknownst to him, his identity was about to become public knowledge. During a routine update of personnel records, an intern accidentally leaked a file containing sensitive information, including photographs of key figures involved in Operation Eclipse. Within hours, images of Commander Atlas circulated online, sparking widespread speculation. Who was this mysterious leader guiding humanity's resistance? Why did he wear a mask? And why did he look so familiar? Among those who saw the photos were Emma, Liam, and Sophia. While scrolling through news websites late one night, Sophia stumbled upon an article titled, "The Face Behind Humanity's Defense Against Aliens." Intrigued, she clicked on it and gasped when the image loaded. "Guys," she whispered urgently, shaking her siblings awake. "You need to see this." Emma and Liam groggily sat up, rubbing sleep from their eyes. "What is it?" Emma asked, stifling a yawn. "It's him," Sophia exclaimed, pointing at the screen. "It's Dad." At first, her siblings thought she was imagining things. But as they leaned closer, studying the photo, their breaths caught in their throats. Beneath the mask and years of weariness, they recognized the same man from the photograph on their dining table. "No way," Liam muttered, his voice trembling. Emma's heart raced. "Mom needs to see this," she said firmly, grabbing the laptop and rushing to their mother's bedroom. When Sarah saw the image, her reaction mirrored theirs: shock, disbelief, and finally, tears. For years, she had wondered if he was still alive. And now here he was, leading humanity's fight against impossible odds. "But why didn't he tell us?" Emma asked, her voice breaking. "Why didn't anyone tell us?" Sarah shook her head, unable to answer. She didn't know whether to feel angry, relieved, or betrayed. All she knew was that their lives were about to change forever. The revelation spread quickly thanks to social media and relentless news coverage. Soon, everyone knew the truth. Commander Atlas, the man orchestrating Earth's defense, wasn't just a soldier. He was a father, a husband, a human being who had sacrificed everything for the greater good. Public sentiment shifted overnight. People who had once criticized military secrecy now hailed Commander Atlas as a hero. Protesters demanding transparency softened their stance, moved by the story of a man who had chosen duty over personal happiness. Even skeptics found themselves inspired by his unwavering dedication. For Emma, Liam, and Sophia, the newfound fame brought mixed emotions. On one hand, they were proud of their dad. On the other, they couldn't shake the ache of knowing how much they had missed out on. Would they ever get to meet him? Could they forgive him for leaving? As the world rallied around Commander Atlas, the triplets clung to each other, drawing strength from their shared bond. They didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain: their father's legacy was written in the stars and in their hearts. Little did they know, destiny had plans to reunite them sooner than they expected. But first, humanity had to survive the greatest challenge it had ever faced. The revelation that Commander Atlas, the masked leader guiding humanity's defense, was not only a soldier, but also a father sent shockwaves across the globe. News outlets couldn't stop talking about it. Social media exploded with hashtags like Crosser Commander Atlas Hero and Royal Family of the Stars, as people shared their thoughts on the man who had sacrificed so much for the planet. Some admired his dedication, others sympathized with his children, wondering how it must feel to discover such a monumental truth about their own family. For Emma, Liam, and Sophia, life became a whirlwind of emotions. Strangers approached them in grocery stores and parks, offering words of encouragement or asking if they were proud of their dad. Reporters camped outside their apartment building, hoping to catch an interview. Their mother, Sarah, did her best to shield them from the chaos, keeping the curtains drawn and answering the door only when necessary. But even within the safety of their home, the triplets struggled to process everything. "He's out there fighting aliens," Liam said one evening, staring at the glowing shields visible through their window. "And we didn't even know he existed until now." Emma nodded, hugging her knees to her chest. "Do you think he knows about us? I mean, does he know we found out?" Sophia frowned, twirling a strand of hair around her finger. "Of course. He knows. Everyone knows. He's probably seen all the news stories." "But why hasn't he contacted us?" Emma asked softly, her voice tinged with sadness. "If he really loves us, wouldn't he want to say something?" Sarah overheard their conversation from the kitchen and sighed. She wanted to reassure them, to tell them their dad loved them more than anything, but she couldn't lie. She didn't have all the answers herself. Was he too busy leading the resistance? Too afraid of putting them in danger? Or maybe he thought they were better off without him. Whatever the reason, it broke her heart to see her children grappling with questions she couldn't answer. Meanwhile, aboard the largest star destroyer, the alien fleet faced a crisis of its own. Despite their advanced technology and vast resources, they were losing ground against humanity's defenses. Every attempt to breach Earth's energy shields ended in failure. Plasma cannons retaliated with devastating precision, forcing the e-bike invaders to retreat repeatedly. Autonomous drones swarmed their ships like insects, disabling weapon systems and disrupting communication channels. Yet what unnerved the aliens most wasn't humanity's firepower. It was their strategy. Instead of launching reckless counterattacks, Earth's forces remained calm and calculated, responding only when provoked. It was as though they were playing chess while the invaders flailed blindly, unable to anticipate their opponent's moves. "What are they waiting for?" one commander demanded during an emergency meeting. "Why don't they attack us outright?" Another shook his head grimly. "Because they don't need to, they're letting us wear ourselves out." A third chimed in, his tone laced with frustration. "This shouldn't be happening. We've conquered planets with civilizations far older and stronger than this one. How can a species barely capable of interstellar travel hold us off like this?" Their leader, a towering figure known simply as Admiral Zorax, remained silent, his expression unreadable. For days he had studied Earth's behavior, searching for patterns or weaknesses. What he found disturbed him deeply. Humanity wasn't acting out of fear or desperation. They were acting out of unity, a concept foreign to his kind. On their homeworld, survival meant dominance. Cooperation was rare, reserved only for those strong enough to enforce it. But here, on this tiny blue planet, humans stood together despite their differences. They shared resources, communicated openly, and trusted each other to follow orders without question. Admiral Zorax realized then that conquering Earth wouldn't be as simple as overpowering its inhabitants. To win, he would need to break their spirit, and that meant targeting the source of their strength. Back on Earth, Commander Atlas worked tirelessly in the control center of Operation Eclipse. His mask hid the exhaustion etched into his face, but his eyes betrayed the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Sleep had become a luxury he could no longer afford. Meals consisted of ration bars eaten hastily between briefings. Yet, despite the physical toll, his mind remained sharp, focused on the mission ahead. One day, as he reviewed data streams from Gaia, the AI overseeing Earth's defenses, he noticed something unusual. A faint signal emanating from the alien fleet suggested they were preparing for a new kind of assault. At first glance, it appeared harmless, a transmission directed toward Earth's surface. But when analyzed further, the signal revealed a chilling purpose: psychological warfare. "They're trying to divide us," Commander Atlas muttered under his breath, his fists clenching involuntarily. "What do you mean?" asked Lieutenant Mara, his second-in-command. "They're broadcasting propaganda," he explained. "Messages designed to sow doubt and fear among civilians. If they succeed, our unity will crumble, and once that happens—" He trailed off, leaving the rest unsaid. Mara nodded grimly. "We need to intercept the signal before it reaches." "The population. I've already ordered Gaia to block it," Commander Atlas replied. "But that won't stop them from trying again. We need to send a message of our own, one that reminds everyone why we're fighting." With that, he turned to the communications team and began dictating instructions. Within hours, a broadcast went live across every channel worldwide. It wasn't a demand for surrender or a threat of retaliation. Instead, it was a symphony of sound and mathematics, a recording of classical music intertwined with equations representing universal constants. The message conveyed peace, logic, and unity, leaving listeners awestruck by its beauty and complexity. As the transmission reached the alien fleet, Admiral Zorax listened intently, his mandibles twitching in irritation. "What is this nonsense?" he growled. "It's art," one of his subordinates ventured hesitantly. "Or perhaps a demonstration of intelligence." "Art cannot defeat weapons," Zorax snapped. "Tell me, what use is harmony when facing annihilation?" His subordinate lowered his gaze, unwilling to argue further. But deep down, he couldn't help but wonder if Zorax was missing the point. Humanity wasn't just defending itself. It was proving that strength came not from destruction but from connection. While the battle raged above Earth, the triplets continued to grapple with their newfound reality. One afternoon, they gathered around the dining table, flipping through old photo albums Sarah had dug out from storage. Most of the pictures featured their mom smiling brightly, her arms wrapped around a man whose face seemed both familiar and distant. "Look at this one," Emma said, pointing to a snapshot of their parents dancing at what appeared to be a wedding reception. "They look so happy." Liam scowled. "Yeah, before Dad decided to leave." "Stop it," Sophia chided gently. "You heard Mom. He didn't decide to leave. He thought he was doing the right thing." "I guess," Liam mumbled, still unconvinced. Just then, the television flickered to life, interrupting their conversation. A breaking news alert flashed across the screen. "Alien fleet retreating temporarily. Humanity celebrates small victory." The triplets stared at the screen, their hearts swelling with pride. Somewhere up there, their dad was making history. "Do you think we'll ever meet him?" Emma asked quietly. Before anyone could respond, a knock echoed through the apartment. Startled, Sarah hurried to the door, peering through the peephole. Her breath hitched as she recognized the figure standing outside. A man clad in a tattered uniform, his face lined with exhaustion, but his eyes filled with love. It was him. Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks as she opened the door and threw herself into his arms. Behind her, the triplets froze, unsure whether to laugh, cry, or run forward. Finally, Emma took a tentative step closer, followed by Liam and Sophia. "Dad?" Emma whispered, her voice trembling. The man knelt down, pulling them into a tight embrace. "I'm so sorry," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "I never stopped thinking about you." For the first time in years, the family felt whole. And though scars remained, both physical and emotional, the bond between parent and children grew stronger than ever. Humanity's victory over the alien invaders served as proof of resilience and innovation. But for Emma, Liam, and Sophia, the real triumph lay in finding closure and finally knowing who their dad truly was. The knock at the door changed everything. For Emma, Liam, and Sophia, it wasn't just a sound, it was the beginning of a chapter they had longed for but never imagined possible. Standing there, clad in a tattered military uniform, was their father. His face bore the marks of years spent battling unimaginable odds, but his eyes shone with an unmistakable warmth. He looked tired, worn down by the weight of his responsibilities, yet undeniably alive. Sarah stood frozen for a moment, tears streaming down her cheeks as she took in the sight of him. Then, without hesitation, she threw herself into his arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Behind her, the triplets hesitated, unsure how to react. They had dreamed of this moment countless times, conjuring images of what their dad might look like or how he would behave. Now that he was here, reality felt surreal. Was this really happening? Or was it another fleeting hope destined to fade away? Finally, Emma stepped forward, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Dad?" He turned to face her, kneeling down so he could meet their gaze eye to eye. His expression softened, filled with both joy and sorrow. "Yes," he said gently. "It's me." Without another word, the triplets rushed toward him, throwing their arms around his neck. Years of longing, confusion, and heartache melted away in that single embrace. It was as if time itself paused, allowing them to savor the moment fully. Even Sarah joined in, wrapping her arms around the family she thought she'd lost forever. For hours they sat together, sharing stories and piecing together the years they had missed. Their father, whose real name was Captain Marcus Hale, spoke candidly about his life since leaving. He told them about Operation Eclipse, the sacrifices required to protect Earth, and the loneliness that came with carrying such immense responsibility. "I wanted to come back," he admitted, his voice breaking slightly. "Every day I thought about you all, but my mission, it wasn't something I could walk away from, not when so much depended on it." Emma nodded slowly, her young mind trying to process the enormity of his words. "We understand," she said softly, "but it hurt not knowing where you were or if you were okay." Marcus reached out, pulling her close. "I know, and I'm so sorry for putting you through that. If I could change things, I would. But I can't. All I can do now is make sure we don't lose any more time." As days turned into weeks, the world began to heal from the scars left by the alien invasion. The invaders' retreat marked a turning point, not just for humanity, but for the galaxy itself. Admiral Zorax and his fleet withdrew to the farthest reaches of space, vowing never to return. Though battered and humiliated, they carried with them a newfound respect for Earth, a planet that refused to yield, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted worldwide. Cities lit up with fireworks, streets overflowed, with cheering crowds, and news anchors proclaimed humanity's triumph over extraterrestrial forces. Yet amidst the jubilation, one story captured hearts more than any other: the tale of Captain Marcus Hale and his family. Interviews aired on every major network, showcasing footage of Marcus reuniting with his children. Viewers watched as the triplets laughed, cried, and hugged their dad tightly, their faces glowing with happiness. Social media flooded with messages of support, admiration, and gratitude. People marveled at how Marcus had managed to balance his role as a soldier and a father, even when separated by light years of distance. But perhaps the most poignant moment came during a live broadcast from the United Nations headquarters. Standing before representatives from every nation, Marcus delivered a speech that resonated deeply with millions. "We often think of heroes as individuals who perform extraordinary feats," he began, his voice steady despite the sea of cameras trained on him. "But true heroism isn't measured by strength or skill. It's measured by sacrifice, by choosing to put others before yourself, even when it costs you everything." He paused, glancing briefly at his family seated in the front row. "Today, we celebrate not just victory over an alien threat, but unity among all people. We proved that no matter our differences, we are stronger together. And though I may wear this uniform, the real heroes are the mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters who kept hope alive when darkness loomed." The auditorium erupted in applause, echoing across continents via satellite feeds. Tears welled up in the eyes of listeners everywhere, moved by the sincerity and humility of his words. Life for the Hale family gradually returned to normal, or at least as close to normal as possible after such extraordinary events. Marcus officially retired from active duty, passing the mantle of leadership to Lieutenant Mara, who had proven herself capable and trustworthy. Together, they ensured Operation Eclipse remained operational, ready to defend Earth should the need arise again. At home, Marcus immersed himself in the role of being a present father. He helped Emma practice piano, coached Liam's soccer team, and read bedtime stories to Sophia. Every evening, the family gathered around the dining table, sharing laughter and creating memories they had been denied for so long. Yet despite the joy filling their lives, shadows lingered. The triplets still grappled with emotions tied to their father's absence. There were moments when anger bubbled to the surface, especially for Liam, who struggled to reconcile his love for his dad with the pain of abandonment. One night, as they prepared for bed, Liam finally voiced his feelings. "Why didn't you tell us you were alive?" he asked, his tone sharp. "Do you have any idea how hard it was growing up without you?" Marcus sighed, sitting beside him on the edge of the bed. "I do," he replied honestly, "and I'll carry that guilt for the rest of my life. But understand this, Liam, I stayed away because I believed it was the only way to keep you safe. If the aliens had discovered my connection to you, they might have used you against me. Against Earth. I couldn't take that risk." Liam stared at him, searching for truth in his eyes. Finally, he nodded reluctantly. "Okay," he muttered, "but promise me one thing." "Anything," Marcus said earnestly. "Promise you'll never leave again." Marcus smiled, ruffling his son's hair affectionately. "I promise." Months later, humanity received an unexpected message from deep space. Encoded within it was a simple statement: Earth has earned its place among the stars. Scientists debated its meaning, wondering whether it signaled peace or merely acknowledgement of humanity's potential. Whatever the case, it served as a reminder that Earth was no longer alone in the universe, and that its future would be shaped by choices made today. For Captain Marcus Hale and his family, the message reinforced a lesson learned through trial and triumph: that courage, unity, and love could overcome even the greatest challenges. As they stood together under a starlit sky, gazing upward with wonder and pride, they knew one thing for certain: their bond would endure, no matter what lay ahead. And so, the story of Earth's defense against alien invaders became legend, a testament to resilience, ingenuity, and the enduring power of family. For Emma, Liam, and Sophia, the real victory wasn't just surviving, it was finding their way back to each other, and discovering that sometimes the strongest heroes are the ones who fight not just for survival but for love.